Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Start Sit Hour. Happy Sunday morning, everyone. We got football already footballing in London. Josh Oliver scored a touchdown, which I'm sure made massive impacts to your fantasy matchups. Also got Dylan Gabriel short touchdown to Harold Fannin. So already a great day to be great across the sea. And Chris, we are looking to replicate that energy here in continental America. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, and like you were just saying, of course, we get touchdowns to people that aren't really a huge factor for our fantasy purposes right now. I was at least hoping that the touchdown to Josh Oliver, there was a wildcat toss, could have come from Jordan Mason. No, of course not. Wasn't even Xavier Scott. Of course, it was Cam Akers. So no, wonderful start to week 5. Gotta love it. But hey, we're enjoying live action football, so I can't complain too much.
I was wondering who 31 was. I was like, wait, is that Jerick McKinnon all over again? No, Cam Akers, blast from the past. So good stuff there. Guys, continue to throw your start sit question in the chat. We will start from the oldest one and try to get to every single one of those over the course of the next hour. Only thing we're going to talk about first, Chris, is one somewhat, just problematic weather affair. It's actually not today. It's this Monday night matchup between the Chiefs and Jaguars in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and that one popped up when I was going through the weather report. For people that don't know, go and check out the cheat sheet that I put up on fantasylife.com. Should be published like every Saturday-ish morning, where I try and run through any of the games that are going to be impacted by the weather conditions. And the Jacksonville game did pop up. A little bit of rain during the game, but the only reason that I have a little level of concern for that one is because it's supposed to be raining pretty much most of today and also into tomorrow, and that would lend to field degradation, so just kind of a sloppy field because Everbank does have that grass sod combination that's going to make it a bit slick or tough for players to get some grip while they're running across the field. So just something to be concerned about. Not a huge concern for lack of play volume or errant passes or something along those lines, but just check and see how bad the grass or like the field conditions are pre-game, and then afterwards we should be fine.
Any sort of weather problematic stuff going on is not going to be great for Trevor Lawrence. So make sure you keep an eye on that. Looks like we have our first sheesh of the day. Long Quinshon Judkins touchdown, I believe, being called back by a hold. So that one sucks, but you know what doesn't suck? All these questions. And let's go ahead and get to these right now. The Ocho, love our Sunday morning show. We appreciate you, man. Let's see. Who would you start for a wide receiver 3? Alec Manor, Malik Washington, or Cooper Kupp? Why else would we be starting this, Chris, if it wasn't with an absolute sick question like this? I have Cooper Kupp one spot ahead of Alec Manor. The thing with Malik Washington, I am confident in him having a nice boost, but last week they just basically used Nick Westbrook-Ikhine more so as a full-time receiver over Malik. So I still do think he'll be looking at, and even in the near term, 6 to 7 combined carries and targets per game, which isn't bad, but going up against the Buccaneers, I think Sam Darnold's playing great football. I would take Cooper Kupp here. How about you, Chris?
Agree with that. And also, we're at least have to project Darren Waller having a bit more of an impact. He only ran 10 routes, if I'm remembering correctly, in that week 4 matchup where they lost Tyreek Hill. So if we're saying that Waller is going to have a larger impact on the passing game, we don't know what to expect out of NWI or Malik Washington. We're projecting what their role is going to be like with this Hill-less Dolphins passing attack. I'd go with the potentially better matchup because we do know the Bucs have been something of a pass funnel, and also the better quarterback. I mean, having to bank on Alec Maynard, having to catch passes from Cam Ward, who's been something of a disappointment. I know tough matchups, but still something of a disappointment through 4 weeks. And of course, Sam Darnold playing, I'd say, pretty solid football, given all things considered, him moving over from Minnesota to Seattle. So Cooper Kupp, 20% plus target share in 2 of his 4 games, looking pretty solid after we had some concerns about him moving on from the Rams. So I think it's Kupp by a pretty decent margin here.
I will say Calvin Ridley's supposed to play. They said he's going to try to, work things out in pregame, just make sure he feels good. If Ridley is out, that will be enough of a tiebreaker for me to go with Alec. They are right next to each other in our Fantasy Life consensus ranks. By the way, with those ranks, guys, this is actually pretty freaking cool. If you guys are not subscribed to Fantasy Life Plus, you actually can get an account for free. I'm not sure if we have it in the description. We do have it at the top of our Twitter at MB Fantasy Life. Basically, you just have to download Perplexity and their web browser comment. And then, you can literally get free years worth of Fantasy Life Plus for free. So go ahead and check that out if you have not already. From Craig, pick 3 PPR, Ibuka, Sutton, Waddle, McConkey, and Ken Walker. This is a good problem to have. I think it's in the right order, though, Chris. As much as I do think a bounce back is coming for Ladd McConkey, I'm not going to find out when we got guys like Ibuka, Sutton, and Jalen Waddle sitting there. So it's those three for me.
Yeah, it's those three. You can make the case for Ladd McConkey. Mike Sanders, who's been the Commanders' slot corner throughout these past 4 weeks. He was 2 DMPs and then a full practice on Friday. So who's to say that there's going to be a better matchup for McConkey on the interior? But I would say that just looking at the target shares or projected target shares for the first 3 guys, you have to go there.
And they have actually been pretty bad. Even with Sarenstow, having a good rookie year. I don't think he's a bad corner, but Lattimore has been pretty rough and over the hill at this point. And again, despite all this, the Commanders this year, bottom 5 defense and pretty much any advanced metric you want to look at against slot wide receivers. So yeah, again, sucks, but we're gonna hopefully this will motivate Ladd to give you some better points in future weeks. Yeah. From Wesley, pick 2 in full point PPR: Dobbins, Dowdle, and Marks. I'm going Dobbins. Dobbins and probably Marks. I'll see how I have it. How are you between Dowdle and Marks, Chris?
I think I would still go with Dowdle here going up against the Dolphins over Marks. I get it after last week, seeing him mix in not as a rusher, over 50% of the team's carries, with Nick Chubb kind of taking a backseat even on early downs and also earning a fairly solid target share if memory serves. So going up against the Ravens defense, who's pretty much been bottom 5 in every defensive metric, I get the allure. But if we're not going to have any sort of split right now for Rico Dowdle with the Carolina backfield, I would say that from a touch standpoint, I lean in his direction versus trying to at least, I don't want to say it's chasing points, but I would say that we are, I guess, almost double counting what we saw last week, in the sense of we saw a great performance from Woody Marks. We want to try and continue to cash in on that. He does have a solid matchup. I think I would go the opportunity side with Dowdle.
22 and 23 in our Fantasy Live consensus ranks. So very much close. If you do want to go ahead and give that lean towards Woody Marks, I would not call you crazy. Also, how true do you think the rumors of Saints moving Kamara are? And do you think Miller is a better stash than Tootin? No, I think Tootin is the better stash, because even if they were just completely identical talents and looking at the same workload, we prefer the Jaguars offense over the Saints at this point. I don't know about the Kamara rumors. We did see Nick Underhill, I believe, report, Chris, that they could look to move some of these veteran players. The problem is, I don't know if that means Alvin Kamara, if that means Brandon Cooks, going out somewhere for like a 7th round pick swap. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's too easy to move him with that contract, but then again, the salary cap is fake, and who has proved that more than the Saints over the last few years?
Yeah, and I guess Kamara, he's not to say he's from New Orleans, but Kamara's from the South. It just seems like he embodies some of that like NOLA vibe. I just can't see a vet like him moving. Whereas some of the younger pieces that are involved with the Saints right now, I mean, what is the allure over trading for close to like a 30-year running back versus, not to say that we would want this, but if Rashid Shaheed was available, even though he's a younger piece, I mean, some of the other pieces on the offense, I could see them getting moved just because there might be more contribution they could add to other offenses. Whereas Kamara, I just don't see why he would want to make that switch at this point in his career.
For my selfish Columbus, Ohio purposes, I'd love to see Olave go to the Jets and just form the New York Buckeyes out there. Probably wouldn't be great for his fantasy value, but yeah, I would appreciate it. Tedero McMillan or Jalen Waddle, leaning Ted, hoping for this blow-up game. I know, man, this is the matchup for it. That said, we could also maybe see a blow-up game for Jalen Waddle going up against this Panthers defense. The on-off splits have really been very, very strong for Waddle without Tyreek over the years. I know the Panthers defense has been pretty good against wide receivers. They've allowed like the fewest receiving yards, but I do tend to think that, with all due respect to J.C. Horn, Chris, some of that has got to be game script dependent, okay? Teams are getting up pretty quick on the Panthers, except for the Falcons. We all saw that game. I just think that, again, Waddle, just enough for me, but I have him wide receiver 16, and I have Tedro McMillan wide receiver 17. So if you feel strongly, Chris, I'm happy to go T-Mac, because I do agree he is due for a blow-up.
Due for a blow up, and this would be one of the situations where I would say it's not really a concern about Tet as a talent. Right now, he's first across the entire team in pretty much every opportunity metric you would want: target share, air yard share, UR score, which is something that Dwayne puts out like on a weekly basis and writes up, which kind of gloms or could puts together your usage and also the results as well into like a single number that you can use. So definitely check that out if you have the T2 subscription over at fantasylife.com. But also the situation. The Dolphins defense right now, they're 29th in pressure rate, 31st in defensive EPA per play allowed. So it should allow Bryce Young to operate behind their offensive line, that's what we would want. We're not really concerned about if Tet can be a good wide receiver after he gets the ball. We just need to get the ball to him at this point. So in this situation, I think Tet should be able to have that blow week that we've been looking for.
Richie is wondering if he is crazy about thinking starting Rico Dowdle over Ashton Genty. I think you are just a little bit crazy there. I'm not going to call you Superman, but he's RB17 for me with Dowdle. And then we got Genty sitting there as a consensus top 10 running back from our ranker. So I hear you. Raiders offensive line is not good, period. And then not going to get helped by, Colton Miller being out. But I just feel like Chris, seeing Genty especially get that pass down work last week. And then just being reminded that, yeah, this guy can take any touch to distance. It's a lot easier to do so when you're facing the Bears defense. I get it. But for me, Genty's an every week starter.
Yeah, he's still every week starter. It's just we will have to lower expectations just given his environment. We know how poor the Raiders' offensive line is. And this is also a case where looking at his underlying metrics, forced missed tackle rate has been somewhat above the league average. His ability to break contact and actually continue to get yards, his yards after contact per attempt has also been fairly high. So that's where I would want to say he's the type of running back where if he winds up breaking one, he's going the distance. Now, at the same time, could it wind up also getting called back for a holding penalty or something like that? Absolutely. I'm just calling the sheesh right now before it happens. But it's still, if we have a running back that has a talent to do it, I say you start him every week.
Jaden Daniels or Dak Prescott? Sounds like, I think the report yesterday was that Jaden Daniels, no restrictions, no game plan changes. They're treating Jaden Daniels like Jaden Daniels. And if they're doing that, Chris, I'm treating him like the top 5 quarterback. He's basically been in fantasy since stepping on the NFL field. Great game from Dak Prescott last week. And honestly, over the course of the season, he's been pretty great, but he just doesn't have that same rushing difference maker that Daniels does.
I guess I have some concerns about Jaden Daniels coming back after missing the past couple of weeks. And we did see that in his rookie season as well. While the scrambling and the design rushes were still there to a degree in his first game back after he missed some time last year, it was diminished to say the least, if not from an opportunity standpoint, but also from an on-field effectiveness. And then also if we have to factor in the fact that he doesn't have Terry McLaurin, and while I wouldn't say that Terry McLaurin is a wide receiver one that we're itching to start week in and week out, but having a field stretcher, something that allows the defense to not have to play as close up to the line of scrimmage, that at least is something that I have some concern about the overall environment. Of course, Deebo Samuel as well dealing with some injuries, and while he say that he's going to be out there, I do wonder how at least effective he's going to be once he's out there too. So I'm not saying you're crazy for wanting to start Dak Prescott, considering he's playing at an MVP level through 4 weeks. It's just I would say that I have a lower ceiling this week for Jaden Daniels.
That's fair. I just kind of go back to that Packers game where Daniels played maybe his worst professional football game, which again, that bar was pretty high. So, it is what it is, but he also still scored 18 or 19 fantasy points in that matchup. So again, these dual threat guys, even when they are, bad in real life, which Daniels usually is not, still can be quite good in fantasy land. From Kimberly, should I pick up Slayton or Diggs for JMO? Chris, you might be the person to talk to about cutting JMO. I would still prefer JMO there. Diggs versus JMO is reasonable. I really think you probably have a better option to cut, though. Is that fair to say, Chris?
I would say and this would be the week that if you're going to play Jameson Williams, this would be the one to do it. And of course, I get to experience all this in person. I will be down in Cincinnati at the game this afternoon to watch the Lions beat up on my Bengals. So, and I've actually bet a touchdown for Jameson Williams' longest reception because of how poor the Bengals have been, and this should be the case for starting Jameson Williams. They're above the league average in explosive play rate allowed to wide receivers, top 10 also in the yardage allowed also to perimeter wide receivers. So if there's going to be a time to start JMO, it should be this week.
I love it, man. Boots on the ground. From Zach, what's up, guys? Dowdle or Sweet Woody in the flex? Again, close. I think Chris talked it out pretty well, though. We're going with Rico Dowdle there, just feeling better about the potential volume. And yeah, as great as last week's was for Woody, I mean, it still was a situation where, he took about 55% of the backfield. I mean, Nick Chubb is not going to completely go away. I don't think he will. Maybe he could, I guess. But Rico Dowdle do fully expect, a legit 80% snap roll in this one. From GD, sitting one between Marvin Harrison Jr., Kenneth Walker, or Deebo Samuel. You mentioned the Deebo injury. I don't even think he entered this. No, okay, he did the Saron still where he was DMP, full practice, no questionable tag. So reason to believe Deebo's fairly healthy. No, obviously Terry McLaurin. I think it's Kenneth Walker and Deebo, Chris, even though this is one of the matchups that we could feel a little bit better about for Marv.
Yeah, and that's where I do have some optimism for Marvin Harrison. But if we do just, and also Kenneth Walker having to run into the teeth of the Bucks defense, so I would say I would actually go Harrison and Deebo in this case. Just looking at the opportunity, if we want to assume that from a Washington standpoint, again, you point out the DMP full practice for Deebo with the heel injury, that he should be good to go. The opportunity he should have without Terry McLaurin, I would say he's one of the guys that I would start. And then between Harrison and Walker, again, having the better matchup for Marvin Harrison going up against the Titans secondary, who pretty much everybody's been able to get over at this point. I mean, I wrote up him in the wide receiver cornerbacks matchups column for this week. I mean, looking at the types of receivers that have beaten the Titans so far: Cortland Sutton, Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman, Nico Collins. I mean, each of those guys, I mean, especially Sutton and Collins, they have that same type of frame that Harrison has, and they also get deployed similarly to what Harrison has so far throughout this season. So I do have a bit more optimism for Marvin Harrison, but I don't fault somebody for trying to go the opportunity route with Walker.
Walker versus Harrison is where it is a little bit close between our rankers. So definitely Deebo, I would say, and then go ahead and it's going to be close. So Xfinity Start Sit Tool was saying, Deebo and Kenneth Walker there again. As a reminder, love our Xfinity Start Sit Tool. You can go ahead and just enter any of your questions in there. It's on the screen right now, and it'd be like Chris and I are telling you the answer. But I do disagree with it when it goes against everything I'm talking about, and instead trust our other alleged expert rankers. So I had to bring that up. Also from GD, Malik Washington or Troy Franklin. I lean Troy Franklin still. We have him kind of as like a borderline wide receiver 3. Washington's more of a borderline wide receiver 4. So hated seeing one or two of those drops last week, Chris. Certainly could have been a better Monday Night Football game against your Cincinnati Bengals. But Franklin still, man, it's been surprising to me because he leads the team in screen targets. Like I thought he was going to be a field stretcher who could, cash in on a few big plays, but he's actually had a better floor than I was expecting this year. And accordingly, give me Franklin.
Yeah, and we have to assume that there's going to be some extra coverage, or let's say more coverage, like shifted towards Cortland Sutton as they go up against the Eagles. And while the mixture of the rest of the guys on the back end, whether it's been Kenyon Mitchell or whomever trying to guard the wide receiver 2, there could be some deep shots there for Troy Franklin. So I dig it.
I believe that is, yes, consensus across the Fantasy Life rankers as well. So Troy Franklin from us. From Heather, Goddard or Strange? Goddard is a little bit banged up, right? Is he okay?
He should be good to go for this week, though. I didn't see anything to suggest that he was going to be a GTD or something along those lines.
In that case, we are going with Dallas Goddard, right, Chris? I mean,
I would say
so. 5, it's tough.
Yeah, and you'd have to assume that they employ hopefully they switch things up for the A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith frustration news of it all. But if there's going to be some level of pressure to Jalen Hurts, especially with the injuries along the offensive line, he has to get the ball out slightly quicker. And also seeing Goddard used once they get into scoring position and watching him get into the end zone last week, I would say that Goddard has the more upside right now compared to Brenton Strange.
Then one flex PPR, and we are talking true flexes here. Michael Carter, Amari DiMercato, Bill Krosky-Merritt, Sean Tucker, or Josh Downs. I'm intrigued by Downs having a nice bounce back this week, but it's more so based on I just think he's a really good player and he's been quiet for too long. If Michael Pittman was out, then definitely it would be Downs, but he is going to be out there. I just think that Mitchell and Doolin are going to be kind of taking those snaps in 2 wide receiver sets that we wish should be there for our guy Downs. I'm leaning towards Michael Carter. I know the last report we got, Chris, was that Arizona was going to be more of a hot hand approach between Carter and Bam Knight and early downs with DiMercato as, the third down back. But to me, this kind of profiles similarly to what we saw in Washington. We also got Bill Krosky-Merritt in this. So maybe he could be the answer throughout all this. It is a muddled mess, Chris. I might even have Bill ahead of Carter despite, me talking him up a little bit. In fact, I do. So Bill Krosky-Merritt for me, Chris. Is Bill Krosky-Merritt not who we hope Michael Carter can be this week?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I would say
got that.
the case for Downs is that Pittman popped up midweek, if I remember correctly, with the hamstring injury.
Yeah,
Should be good to go, but if that's something that winds up flaring up during the game, I mean, we're projecting at this point. If Pittman was going to be out, or even if we saw a limited type of situation for Michael Pittman, I would say all systems go for Josh Downs. We don't have that, so it's either of the running backs there, and out of them, I would say that Bill Krosky Merritt would be the one that I would try and lean on, just given the amount of opportunity that we would assume has to be there for the running game and also potentially for the passing game, even though it's been either Jeremy McNichols or I think even Chris Rodriguez mixed in for maybe just one
yeah.
target in the first game without Austin Eckler. But I think it's Merritt in this one.
Last one from Heather, Bill Krosky Merritt, Troy Franklin, Demercado, Travis Hunter, Ramondre Stevenson, or Malik Washington. I think it's still Bill. Franklin's very close, so I wouldn't blame her for going there.
Yeah, and I would say you could potentially make the case for Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, the Bills' run defense has been league average-ish in allowing a number of explosives. So I would say that if all things being equal, I would say Stevenson also deserves to be part of that conversation, just given the fact that Mike Vrabel didn't even bother benching him, or there was really no shift in his usage after the 2 fumbles. So I'd say he also deserves some consideration there, but I think it's still Bill Krosky Merritt.
Ed Oliver and Matt Milano for the Bills. Still questionable. Not sure if they are going to be returning. So that certainly would be good news for Ramondre, Trevion, that entire Patriots run game. From a fellow Ian, someone talked me out of sitting Henry for Woody Marks. I would like to think, man, that without Lamar Jackson, we are not going to see Henry finish with under 12 carries for the 4th week in a row. It's Derek freaking Henry, man. I know the Houston defense is good and everything, but it's Derek freaking Henry, Chris. I'm going down with the ship there.
Yeah, I know it sounds kind of cliche to say that you're going down with the ship, but you also have to assume it's the assumption of rational coaching there, where Todd Monken, we know that he has been something of I would say, a solid play designer and play sequencer. So getting some of his best players involved should be the approach for this game, and Derrick Henry is one of them. And we've all to say that he's been game scripted out. That's when Lamar Jackson has been under center. This is going to be one of those. They're trying to get as much production out of this offense as possible without having him here and Cooper Rush starting. So, and since Henry has also mixed in for a few targets as well, I'll give the nod to Henry this week.
I would like to think Henry has twice as many touches as Marks today. Again, can't always assume that's going to happen, but you paid the man. Let's not go down with Cooper Rush. That's bringing a freaking knife to a gunfight over here. All right. From Will, PPR, BTJ, or Dowdle. I think I'm Dowdle here, Chris. Again, I'm cool buying low on Brian Thomas Jr. I do not think he magically got terrible at football. Did he have the yips out there for a game or two? Potentially, but dude is still just a size speed freak. I have Dowdle as my 36th player overall. BTJ is my 45th player. So it's not the biggest, golf in the world, Chris, but I'm still Dowdle here.
Yeah, I think it's still Dowdle. You could make I'm assuming if we toss both names into the Xfinity tool, it would say that Dowdle would be the one he would be the one. And seeing BTJ still having 20+% of the team's targets in 3 of the 4 weeks, you could see where, especially in this game where we're assuming the Chiefs are going to keep the Jaguars in a pass-friendly type of script, that you would lean towards Brian Thomas. I just haven't seen the results to reflect needing to have him on our roster, so I'll go Dowdle here.
That's a fun little Easter egg to Rico Dowdle's headshot over there.
I love that one, man.
Completely zoomed in. We refuse to fix it. Out respect to that fantastic headshot. The regulars are here waiting for the ankler. Not sure what that is, but I appreciate you either way. Country Pie. If you don't know, you can't afford it, Chris. MH1608, Woody Marks or Kenneth Walker in full PPR need upside. I'm still going, to me, Kenneth Walker, it's a little bit different, but it's not too far removed from like the Kyron Williams conversation, Chris, where it's like, all right, would it be cooler if we had no Zach Charbonnet and we were looking at 25 plus touches a week for Kenneth Walker? Yeah, it would, but his touches have also increased every single week out there. He just had 20 combined carries and targets last week, even with Charbonnet, unfortunately, vulturing a goal line touchdown. And if you do want some of that upside, again, I do think Walker is someone who can always hit that big play. So yeah, again, toughish matchup here, but I was still in KW3. How about you, Chris?
Still has to be Kenneth Walker here. Yeah, I get the wanting to, like we were talking earlier about trying to not necessarily chase points, but chasing opportunity for Woody Marks and what should be a better matchup for him. But we could also see a scenario where it's Nick Chubb taking advantage of the same matchup going up against the Baltimore Ravens run defense, and it's Nick Chubb that winds up getting into the end zone. So if, like you were saying, Kenneth Walker having 58% of the team's carries last week, and that was after having half of them the week beforehand. So we're seeing his usage continue to creep up. If we're seeing less of Charbonnet, more of Ken Walker, I have to go Walker here.
4 of our 5 alleged expert rankers are also Team Walker. If you happen to think that Dwayne McFarland guy knows what he's talking about, though, he is the one guy leaning for Woody Marks.
It's the hair. That's what does it for him.
That hair just loves Woody Marks for whatever reason. Greg, he tried the tropical breeze smoothie, Chris, and it was really good. Awesome. More importantly, we got that fan and tutty. Love to see it, Greg. He does have an Olave versus Flowers issue in full PPR. Projected to win by 36. So let's see. It's probably still Flowers. Just the way that they can get him the ball. Honestly, like Olave does have a nice floor. I get it. I think I'm still leaning Flowers. Where are you at with this one, Chris?
I would go Olave here, just in a tougher matchup against the Texans secondary. If we do think that there's going to be a chance that they try and spread the ball out in order to get the ball out of Cooper Rush's hands as quickly as possible. And I'm not saying that you should go ahead and start Rashad Bateman or DeAndre Hopkins or any of the rest of those guys, but I do wonder if there's a way that they get Mark Andrews, or even if Isaiah Likely winds up getting in some work in this particular game. They do have multiple options for the Ravens, so there's no guarantee that they're going to continue to zero in on Flowers as they had in the first couple of games. So I would say Olave right now, while he is still something of a PPR scam over the past month or so, I'd say his floor is a bit higher than Flowers. So I'd say I'd go Olave rather. Sorry.
Producer Matt LaMarca says to start him since you are projected to win by 36. So good spot to be in, Greg. I do think it's pretty close. It's honestly 2 pretty high floor guys, because I just have a feeling, again, they're not going to want to put too much on Rush's plate. If we're not getting at least 3 of those PPR friendly, pop passes to Flowers throughout the day, I will be disappointed. So thank you as always for hanging out with us, Greg. From Blockbuster Manager, non-PPR, sit 1, Olave, Waddle, and McBride. Non-PPR, Chris, I think it's Olave for a lot of the stuff that you're just talking about.
The opportunity will be there, but if they're not scoring for the receptions, then I would go Waddle and McBride.
All right. From No Name, respect that. Choose 2, half PPR, Walker, Henry, Marks, and Dobbins. Okay, so we've talked through, it's definitely Henry. We've talked through Walker over Marks. Where are you at Walker versus Dobbins, Chris? RJ Harvey had a good game last week, but 7 of his 18 touches actually came after Dobbins hit the 100 yards, and they basically pulled him. So, yeah, again, it was good to see Harvey play well. I think he's going to have increased chances down the way, but I still do think this is Dobbins' backfield.
Yeah, I think it's Dobbins' backfield. Tougher matchup right now going up against the Eagles' run defense. So I'd say that's the only knock against him for Dobbins. Whereas with Walker, we were just saying earlier we wouldn't really want to have any of your running backs going up against Tampa Bay's defense. So I'd say from an opportunity standpoint, I do think it's going to be. I would lean a bit more towards Walker over Dobbins in this case.
I think we'll get this one, our Xfinity start sit tool, and see what it's saying. It really is close. Again, we have Dobbins and Woody right next to each other. For the record, I know we haven't gotten questions on them yet, or at least we haven't gotten to those questions, but Rachaad White is a top 18, I should say, consensus running back for us. I have him RB20, Dwayne's RB16, Matthew Friedman's RB19. So I would say over Woody and Dobbins and even some of these other guys, Rachaad White getting, deserved love. We did get that report this morning that, again, is expected to be the Rachaad White show. And that also is what we happened to see last season in week 14, I believe it was, when we did see Bucky, have to exit due to a hip and back injury after just 10 snaps. So drum roll, please, for the Xfinity Start Sit Tool. It is Derrick Henry. And then, I'm going Woody Marks over our best lay plans with Walker and Dobbins. So again, this has taken the ranks from our 5, Kendall Valenzuela, Rob Wozniak, Matthew Friedman, myself, and Dwayne McFarland. So, take that for what it will, but it is a very close question either way, Chris. For the love of God, though, definitely start Derrick Henry. Yes. From Fenny, what do we think of Tajay Spears today, him or Travion? I think they're in the same range, and I'm going Travion just out of fear that they ease Spears back in. It's also the freaking Titans, which I really want nothing to do with, Chris. So Patriots, not exactly, an offense that we can fully trust, but more so than the Titans at this point. Yeah,
he should. I would say Spears should definitely be on your roster. If you haven't stashed him already, then definitely do so before kickoff today because of his usage, not just as a rusher, but also as a pass catcher. And with the Titans really being unable to create much of anything through the air so far, I would say that Spears monitor his usage for this week, but he's not somebody I'm trying to rush out and start.
To bring up that Spears was the PPR RB5 in the fantasy playoffs last year. So yes, there is a ceiling there. But again, right now, healthy Tony Pollard and everything, I would just go ahead and go with Mr. Travion. From Daniel, start 2 non-PPR, Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown, Travis Etienne, and Woody Marks. Definitely going with Travis Etienne. Chiefs run D, I know they have been really good in the past, but Jaguars offense, man, that offensive line really are cooking. So Etienne has earned that. And then otherwise, I guess this one would be more, I think I have Woody and Walker ahead of Chase Brown this week, Chris. Lions are a team that historically and even into this year, like, have done a good job stopping the run. It's more so the passing game now with DJ Reed out that I think could be the bigger issues there. So I would lean particularly in non-PPR, which takes away some of the Woody Marks upside. I go with ETN and KW3 here.
What I was thinking too, because if this is going to be even half or full PPR, I could see the case for having Marks over Walker, and I would go Marks and ETN. But if it's non-PPR, yeah, give me ETN and Kenneth Walker here.
Is Terrence crazy for benching AJ Brown for Rico Dowdle? No, because I actually have Rico ranked ahead of AJB. Where you at this one, Chris?
So this is more of a, do you believe that this is the squeaky wheel narrative for AJ Brown? And also the fact that he's going to be mostly matched up. I'm assuming he's going to be matched up against PS2 throughout most of this game. And these are the types of matchups that you would assume AJ Brown gets up for in the morning. Put the ball in my hands, give me your best corner. I'm going to go one-on-one against him and win. And while I would assume that the number of targets towards him is still going to lean his way, he's going to come down with a couple of those big games down the sideline against Patrick Surtain. But I understand trying to go with the floor of opportunity for Rico Dowdle, but can we see a scenario where it's a 3-catch, 70-yard touch with a touchdown game for AJB on 7 or 8 targets? I think that's kind of where I'm thinking AJB winds up today.
I do have a scary thought in my head where, like, we're just watching a 3-yard run by Rico Dowdle and then red zone cuts to AJ Brown, just, brushing off 3 tacklers downfield. And it's like, why did I sit AJ Brown for Rico Dowdle? Still, though, when I do have these close start sit decision, guys, I am going to go with the running back who probably has 20 plus touch upside. Good question, though. Terrence from Jay, need 1 RB, Rico Dowdle or Rashad White, and 1 tight end, Mason Taylor, Tommy Trembles, or Taysom Hill in standard. I got a couple leagues with a tight end issue like that as well. Let's start with Rico and Rashad White. Chris mentioned that before. We do have Rico getting a slight bump in our consensus ranks. Or actually, no, we don't. Rashad White is the lead RB in the consensus ranks. Are you in agreement with that, Chris? Cool. Good with Rashad White there. Mason Taylor, Tommy Tremble, or Taysom Hill in standard. It's either Mason Taylor or we're getting frisky with Taysom Hill. It's probably Mason Taylor, Chris, but is this Taysom Hill? He's back. We'll see if Juwan Johnson is out. That would be a thing. That is one of the outstanding injuries that we don't know about. If Juwan Johnson is out, I would go with Taysom. Otherwise, probably just take Mason Taylor in the Cowboys matchup.
Yeah, I say Mason Taylor because we just don't know if this new coaching staff with Kellen Moore is going to use Taysom Hill doing that same bullshit that the previous Saints coaching staffs have been using Taysom with the rushes once they get inside the 10 and also having him throw or try and attempt to throw a pass, but instead rushing for 40 or 50 yards down the sideline. We don't know if that's still going to be the case in how he's used. So I would say with the uptick in routes and also targets for Mason Taylor, I would say he'd be the best bet. But I understand the allure for Taysom, just considering how we've seen him operate on the field in the past.
Greg, don't forget to spank the like button. You are correct, Greg. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Sir Rips a lot, AI browser ads in the fantasy football stream. I know, guys, but it is pretty cool. And again, you get a free year's worth of MB, Fantasy Life Plus on it. So how could you not be loving that? It's a free subscription for a year. Right. Pretty cool. From Rick, hey guys, would you start RJ Harvey over Michael Carter? I'm already starting Dobbins in full PPR. Yeah, I don't love starting the teammates, and I think it's close enough between Carter and Harvey that I would lean there. I have them neck and neck. I think with the Dobbins thing, I'd probably lean Carter. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I would lean Carter. If this were a different matchup, I would say yes, but to your point, trying to start not 1 but 2 running backs going up against the Eagles defense, that's a tough one for me.
Greg needs to drop a running back for a kicker. He hates leagues with kickers. So do I, my friend. You come to the right place. Dowdle or DeMercado. I'm not starting either today. I would still say DeMercado. The way this Chuba thing is going, man, like it would not be the most shocking thing in the world if we're sitting here next week and they're like, yeah, his calf really hasn't gotten better. We're moving him to IR. I don't see really a scenario, Chris, where DeMercado becomes this must-start RB2 in the same way that I think Rico can. I just think that we're going to continue to see the other guys for Arizona involved. And again, I know Trey Benson isn't out for the season or anything like that, but he could be back. We'll see what happens there. I'm cutting DeMercado. You with me?
Yeah, cut DeMercado. And it's funny, I would say, throughout all this conversation about who's going to get the touches in the Cardinals backfield, there really hasn't been a ton of consideration about Kyler also mixing in for some of the rushing as well. So with essentially having Murray as the wild card in all of this, I would say DeMercado is probably the easiest of that group to drop.
Is Seattle. That is actually a great call. Torrey Horton's cool and everything, but Olave will give them a legit, field stretching deep threat. Yeah. And we're getting Buckeyes back together. Sir Rips a lot gets it. From Fabian, should I drop Romeo Doubs from Malik Washington? 3 touchdowns, game off the bye. No, we're keeping Doubs, right, Chris?
Yeah, we're keeping Doubs. And also the fact that if we look at the Packers week 6 matchup coming out of their bye, who do they get? The Cincinnati Bengals. So I would say let's go ahead and hold on to him for one more week, or at the very least, you hold on to him. You get another solid week of production out of him, and then you can dangle him on the trade block for a little bit more value than just straight dropping him to waivers.
Wanted to see real quick where the Packers are. I just did some strength of schedule stuff this week, guys. Have an article on it and some tweets as well. Yeah, Packers. Week 6 through 8, they play the 24th, 20th, and 26th ranked defenses in PPR points per game allowed to wide receivers. So good shout there, Mr. Chris. Let's see. Second flex, full PPR from Greg, Harvey, Henderson, DeMercado, or BTJ. I'm going with BTJ in that one. And I get the hesitation. We had the dots before it. He was listed last and everything there. But, man, it's got to hit eventually, Chris. Brenton Strange is not going to lead the 2025 Jaguars in receiving. I refuse to live in that reality. Give me Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, and we've seen other perimeter wide receivers get over on them. What was it? Quentin Johnston in that first game when the Chargers played against the Chiefs, he wound up performing well. So if Trevor Lawrence is still willing to throw the ball his way, and that's definitely been evidenced by his usage so far through 4 weeks, I would say if he gets over the yips or business decisions or whatever label you want to toss at it for BTJ, he could wind up having a solid game in what should be a back and forth matchup between the Jags and the Chiefs.
BTJ there from Shin Obi-Wan, Harrison or Nico. We are going with Nico just in general, but also, man, like that Ravens secondary is so banged up. Got to be feeling pretty great if you have Nico right now. I think over Underdog Fantasy, they have their pick'ems, highers and lowers. I'm pretty sure Puka Nacua is the only wide receiver or more receiving yards set up for Nico this week. So feel good if you have him. From Steegy, good morning. Good morning to you. Looking to start some so-so wide receivers. Can start 2 in a PPR. Down bad. Devontae Smith, smelly ass Trey Tucker, fake prodigy Travis Hunter, Cooper Crap, trash Troy Franklin, or bum Keon Coleman. Congrats to STG73 for winning best question of week 5. So, all right, I'm leaning down bad Devontae Smith, and I think trash Troy Franklin. This is tough. They're all in that same range. Where are you going with Cooper Crap here, Chris?
I think Cooper Crap is probably the one that sticks out the most to me. If we're assuming that this is going to be a game where Sam Darnold is going to have to pass quite a bit. There's less production on the ground. We've seen him operate fairly well alongside JSN. I'd say he's the one that sticks out the most to me in this one. Would be Cooper Crap. And then we talked earlier about trash Troy Franklin and how, yes, Cortland Sutton should get the majority of looks from Bo Nix, but he's also been used on screens, on the short area stuff that can give him the ball in his hands. So that's those 2 guys that probably stick out, because Trey Tucker, we don't know if Jacoby Myers is going to wind up mixing in a bit more. Have no idea what to expect out of Brock Bowers. It's kind of sound like he might not play this week. Fake prodigy Travis Hunter, absolutely. Get him out of here. I have no, and also Keon Coleman, they're spreading the ball around so much, as while Coleman might have either first or second in air yards for the Bills, could be Khalil Shakir. It could be Dalton Kincaid. It could be James Cook also mixing in. I would say that from a opportunity standpoint, it's Cooper Crap and trash Troy Franklin.
I think you're spot on. I am a Keon Coleman defender. The only thing I'll say, guys, like last year, he only caught 50% of the targets thrown his way. This year, he's up to 77%. He's still averaging north of 9 yards per target. The problem is, Josh Allen hasn't thrown more than 28 times in these last 3 games. And accordingly, he's had 3, 4, and 4 targets. I don't know if the Patriots are going to bring it out of him, but I just want to defend that bum Keon Coleman, as Steegee pointed out. But thank you for the question, man. From Mini Jordan, full PPR, who should I pick up? Mason Taylor or Dalton Schultz, or keep Chiggy? We were hearing that Gunnar Helm, the Titans' number 2 tight end, actually could see a role increase. I wasn't too excited to start Chiggy even before we got that report, but it's enough in a close call, Chris, for me to go with Mason Taylor.
I'd still go Mason Taylor because even let's assume that the role does increase. We have to expect that still it's going to be Calvin Ridley's going to be involved, Alex involved. We're now talking about potentially Spears also cutting into a bit of the receiving work. Whereas for Mason Taylor, it's really just Garrett Wilson and Mason Taylor, because we're not assuming that Alan Lazard is going to pick up anything more. Was it Josh Reynolds still kicking around there also, like on the Jets as well? So I would say Mason Taylor without too much hesitation.
Another one, tight end world from Libby Gam, Tommy Tremble or Cade Otton. One of these weeks, Otton's going to do something, man, but I feel like he had his opportunities here with Godwin being out and Evans being hurt, and he just still couldn't do much, man. I'm leaning towards Tommy Tremble. We actually saw the role, spike up last week with Jatavian Sanders out of the picture. Yeah, it'd be cooler if Bryce Young was more consistent, but this Dolphins defense, as much as that pass rush actually finally started to get home, that secondary is still very much the worst group in the league. So give me Tommy Tremble.
Yeah, I would definitely take Tommy Tremble. My original assumption was that Cade Otton was going to ask to run fewer routes and block more with all the offensive line injuries, but that really hasn't been the case. Still over 80% of the routes, he's not earning any targets in this offense that's been without Mike Evans, going to be now for the next 2 straight weeks now. And with Godwin coming back and walking into 10 targets after the ankle injury, I would say that less about Cade Otton, and I would say go with Tommy Tremble.
Oh, man. I had to, unfortunately, in this deeper league, guys, bench Brock Bowers for Tommy Tremble yesterday, and that was certainly a look in the mirror moment. Come on, Brock. We know you want to play, man. Get out there. I don't want to start Tommy Tremble. From Greek, Devontae Smith, Dobbins, or Shaheed need 2.5 PPR. We're starting Dobbins out of that group, and then I think I'm going Devontae over Shaheed. I will say, as much as the Broncos in and of themselves are a tough matchup, I'm with you, Chris. I think Surtain's going to be locking up with AJB. I'd say Devontae Smith is the more likely one to actually get a little bounce back this weekend.
Yeah, and we've seen other teams go after, who is it? Riley Moss, who, if I remember correctly, is the second corner for the Broncos. My Bengals tried it a couple of times, just throwing air balls to T. Higgins a couple of times. And
he got one, but
he got one. And of course, having Jake Browning throw you the ball versus Jalen Hurts, I would rather Hurts in that situation doing some of the heavy lifting there. So I would say Devonta Smith is the one that I would go with.
Wentz is so bad. Yes, he is 73 yards. At least he's got, generational running back thrower Cam Akers at his disposal. Timmy, Hurts or Fields this week? Now we're talking.
That's a good one.
We all rank Hurts higher. We all have Fields. Look, it's QB2 versus QB5. I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts. If you wanted to roll the dice with Justin Fields, I get it. The thing with Jalen Hurts that just separates him from every other quarterback in fantasy is he can have a horrible day. Saquon, whoever, gets him down the 1 yard line twice, and all of a sudden he's got a top 5 performance. And that happens fairly often, Chris. So I'm still going with Jalen Hurts. That said, Xfinity believing in Justin Fields. Wow. That's wild, actually. Why is it doing that?
Why is it doing that? Because he has the better matchup, I would assume, going up against the Dallas defense that has been giving it up to pretty much every pass that they've come across.
Just Chris, I was thinking about this literally last night because these are dumb things I was thinking about trying to get to sleep after just being at a Buckeye game that made it very tough to sleep. But Justin Fields, don't you think there's something to like a good matchup for most quarterbacks maybe not being the same for a dual threat? I don't think Justin Fields is as equipped to take advantage of this Cowboys defense as these other quarterbacks. I get it. It's a good matchup for him relative to, better defenses and everything. But I don't know, man. I still think Justin Fields versus guys like Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, I just think there's still a low floor for Fields kind of regardless of the matchup.
You're absolutely right, and that was one of the things I was honestly thinking about yesterday too. Was that yes, we want to have all of our quarterbacks face the Dallas's defense, but looking at some of the other or the other passing games, does does Justin Fields have a Malik Neighbors? Not really. Garrett Wilson's solid, but he's not at
Yeah.
the same level, and that's what allowed Russell Wilson to throw for 400 plus yards. Does does Justin Fields have a Romeo Dobbs, Tucker Kraft, all that, like the Packers did a couple of weeks ago? No, he doesn't have that. So while I would say it's a plus matchup for Fields, does he have the ability to take advantage of it the same way that the other teams have? And I would say no. So I definitely get the pause with just saying start any quarterback against Dallas's defense, because the Jets passing game just isn't the same as the others that we've seen so far. And especially with Chicago too. They don't have a Roma Dunze type of guy.
So, Jason, what tight end? Zach Ertz for your first question. Start 2. You would start Rico and Rachaad White. Good options to have. Mm-hmm. Another start 2. This one's a little tougher. White, Rico, Javonte, or Michael Carter. We already talked about Rachaad White over Rico, and then so it'd be White and Javonte, Chris?
Yeah, White and Javonte. Yep.
Cool. And then last one from Jason, start 1, Pittman, Rico, and Chubb. I think it's Rico or Pittman. I think I have him pretty close. I would say the midweek hamstring thing, even though he's going to be out there, Chris, that'd be enough of a tiebreaker for me to go with Rico.
Yeah, that's from an opportunity standpoint. I like the matchup for Chubb going against the Ravens defense. Talked about it earlier. We could see him sprint down the middle of the field, just running right in between the Ravens defense for a long game, but I still say it's Rico.
Juwan Johnson versus Bretton Strange, Tommy Tremble, Mason Taylor. If Juwan's fine, even with Taysom Hill being active, I'm still starting him ahead of those guys. Because I don't, again, Taysom, we'll see, as Chris says, if he's going to get his usual Taysom bullshit out there. We'll see what happens with Kellen Moore. I could still see Juwan Johnson having his true every down role. It's an offense that, they like Olave and Shaheed, but could they just end up using more 2 tight end sets? I think that makes sense as well. And again, a lot of Taysom strategy is going to come from the sort of wildcat stuff that you can argue impacts, guys like Kamara and Kendre Miller a little bit more. So I would still lean Juwan. If we hear that, okay, he's going to be active, but it's going to be on a pitch count, and that's one thing. So I would say Juwan, and then Brenton Strange, and then Mason Taylor out of that group, Chris.
That's the order in which I would go, because we're not really projecting a larger role this for the Jaguars offense for, let's say, Travis Hunter. And Parker Washington, while he's been solid as a receiver, more of a real receiver than anything else, blocking downfield and all of that, but we don't have any points per block league yet. Scott Fish, I hope he's not listening to this. So I would say that Brenton Strange is probably the second one out of that group that I would look to outside of Juwan Johnson.
Big fan. I think you have your wide receivers in the right order. Worthy, BTJ, AJ Brown. We all would start them over Michael Pittman. Again, just with the hamstring thing being enough of a tiebreaker there. From Dustin, full PPR need 2. Wandale, Woody, Hunter Henry, Trey Tucker. Definitely Woody. If no Brock Bowers, Chris, I'm tempted to go Trey Tucker. It'd be between him and Wandale. You lean Trey Tucker?
Yeah, leaning Trey Tucker. The hope would be that this is where, and this is this is not a thing at all, but I'm hoping that this is going to be the non-3 interception game for Geno Smith, while it is a tougher matchup going up against the Colts, using some of the underneath stuff that we can see from either Tucker or Jacoby Myers will allow him to move the ball down the field. So I would say Trey Tucker here, assuming that it's going to be no Brock Bowers in this matchup, because it's sounding like he's not going to play.
Freaking guys, Schefter came out, and I'll read the freaking tweet again, because maybe I'm just missing something here. More Mark Sanchez stuff. What a Saturday storyline that was. Okay, Schefter said Bowers, he's been playing through a PCL injury and bone bruise on his knee that has impacted his performance. Doctors have said the only way to recover from the knee injuries he suffered on opening day is to rest, which Bowers has been unwilling to do. Did he forget a sentence there at the end here? So we're going to find out in about 40 minutes, guys, at 11:30. Rest assured, we will have those ranks updated immediately. But yeah, for now, just got to kind of do this if or then with Bowers. Full PPR, Juwan Johnson or Malik Washington. I'm going with Juwan Johnson as long as he is going to be active. Chris is in agreement there. From Michael, full PPR, have Juwan Johnson injury concerns, options to drop him and get Taylor, but I could drop one of Pacheco, Kendre, DeMercado, Algier. I think you're fine. Again, we'll see if Juwan plays. If he does not play, I think I'd be more willing to drop DeMercado. probably just Algier, honestly. He's on bye. I like Algier as a handcuff, but like when it comes down to it and you need a starter, like you can't just keep him. Is that
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
at,
and
Chris?
I'm also looking at who would be the guy that's most likely there after this week because I'm assuming after with going into this week's run of waivers, Algier would probably be the one that's still going to be out there
Yeah.
because people are probably going to look at unless he completely duds out. DeMarcado, you're going to want to pick up because he's going to get some usage. Kendre Miller working in behind Alvin Kamara, he's going to get some usage. Pacheco finally getting into the end zone. People are going to want to at least stash him out of that group. Algier is probably the one that people are going to see the name, but then they're going to try and look for somebody else afterwards.
Good shout there. From Kevin, A.O. Manor, Franklin, DeMarcado, Shaheed. I am Shaheed. He is very close to A.O. Manor and Franklin, though, so I get going with it. I just feel like at home against the Giants, like this is, the Cooter Doodles, I don't think they're going to be at the game, but they're going to be there in spirit, pulling for Shaheed to go out there and do his thing. Who you got, Chris?
Yeah, and that's where you could see a scenario that Spencer Rattler gets flushed out of the pocket with Abdul Carter just chasing after him. He guns it downfield to Shaheed. I can totally see that happening.
Going to try to get to all these. We appreciate you sending them in throughout. So going to be a little more rapid fire here. Trey Henderson or Amari DeMarcado. Going with Trey Henderson, at least just for this week. From GD, PPR, Washington, Slayton, or Ridley. Oh, man, I honestly don't mind going Slayton straight up over Ridley, even if he plays. How do you feel on that one, Chris?
Yeah, I would also go Slayton here. Have to assume that he backs off of his deep area of the field role and also absorb some of those targets from Malik Neighbors. So yeah, a Slayton there.
Yeah, again, like it's cool that Ridley's going to play, but I don't love the as long as he feels right pregame.
Yep.
Let's see. Gut checker, Jawan, Hunter Henry, or Ertz in full PPR. Those are good enough options. I think probably see if Hunter Henry can stay hot, Chris. I mean, I know he's been a little touchdown dependent, but dude's earned it. And again, we have some of those injuries going on in Buffalo. They have been very, very good against tight ends, but Drake May doing his thing. We're going to go with, is it Henry over Ertz?
I'd still say Henry over Ertz, but it's close.
It is close. Okay, so yeah, we would go with Henry or Ertz there. Lean Henry. D-Money, May or Herbert. I'm leaning more to Herbert because my opponent has QJ, so if he scores, I score.
That's
Chestnut
strategy.
Checkers there, right? I believe I do have Herbert one spot ahead. How do you feel?
Yeah, I would still say, even though no Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater are obviously out, and they've still continued to pass well above the expected rate so far. So if we have any hope for Ladd coming through, Keenan, or any of those guys, we have to at least still continue to lean on Herbert. So I'd say I'd go Herbert here.
And that is consensus, guys. We do have Drake May as our QB7, but Justin Herbert QB4, just giving him the benefit of the doubt there. From Kachow, Dowdle, or DeMarcado, we are going with Rico Dowdle. From Josh, sitting one between Debo, Sutton, Pittman, and Scattaboo. I think I'm sitting Pittman out of that group, Chris. Yeah. Cool. Devontae Smith or Keon Coleman. Go with Devontae Smith. Half PPR, Kamara, Sutton, or Pittman. It's between Kamara and Sutton. Where do you land on this one, Chris?
I would say a half PPR. I'll go with Kamara on this one to try and get away from the Giants pass rush. I would say get a few more targets to Kamara this week. I can see that happening.
I'm cool with that one. From Justin, Stevenson or Slayton getting destroyed by injuries. Boy, aren't we all, my friends. So I think I have Stevenson. Yeah, I do have Stevenson. You cool with that? Yeah,
I'd go with Stevenson. But I would say the only reason why I would advocate for Slayton over is if you're behind after the Thursday stuff. So if you're behind, I would go Slayton. If all things being equal, go Stevenson.
Averett, I would flex Marv over A.O. Manor and DeMarcado. Jimmy Boy, Dak or May in a typical 4-point passing touchdown. I think we're all on team May. You with that, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's May.
Murray or Daniel Jones. We do have Daniel Jones ranked higher. What a time to be alive. Shakir or Michael Carter in a full PPR. I think I'd probably go Shakir there, but yeah, I'm going Shakir. Are you there?
Yeah, full PPR. He's been getting enough targets. Actually, his target rates increased each week over the past 2 to 3. And so I would say Shakir here.
Worthy and ETN for Kraft and Garrett. I think I like the Worthy and ETN side a little more. If you have a complete zero at tight end, I get it. It seems like a reasonable trade. How do you feel about that one, Chris?
Yeah, that's completely fine. I don't see any downside. It looks like you're offering something that makes the other side better. So no, I get that. Yeah.
Wandale or Tyler Warren full PPR? I'm going Tyler Warren. I was wondering, Chris, like maybe this whole just wondering, like this could be a Tyler Warren blow up week.
Yeah, and with the rushing attempts also once they get inside the 5, I know folks that have either Daniel Jones or Jonathan Taylor are now upset because we have another potential vulture spot from the Colts offense, but still, this level of usage for Tyler Warren is just something that we don't typically see. So yeah, I'd have to go Warren.
Libby Man asking AJ Clown or BTJ with something that's very not nice, but it is admittedly funny. I got AJ Brown one spot ahead, Chris. Are you team AJB?
Yeah, let's go AJB. This is going to be a classic one-on-one, man-on-man type of matchup for AJB against PS2, but I'll go AJB.
Fields, Daniels, or Knicks. Kind of discussed this earlier. I think Daniels, it makes sense to rank him higher if you wanted to roll a dice on Fields. So again, we're talking about 2 of the top, 6, 7 quarterback plays of the week. Projecting Danny Dimes for the rest of the season. I can go ahead and look at our handy dandy rest of season rankings and see where our fellas Adam Ronis and John Legazy have them right now for you guys. Daniel Jones sitting there as QB 13 and QB 9. So borderline QB 1. Again, guys, even if the efficiency falls off through the air, which has been among the league's best, we have seen the artist known as Vanilla Vic still run enough to be, better in fantasy than real life. So I say borderline QB1, probably not too different from what we're seeing from guys like Kyler Murray at this point. Let's see. Did we confirm that Bowers is out?
No, I haven't seen anything from Schefter yet saying that Bowers is out.
Okay. If he is out, Theo Johnson or Mason Taylor. I lean Mason Taylor. I see the allure for Theo Johnson. Are you same way?
Yeah, because we can't even really assume that that Jackson Dart is going to drop back to pass enough to either float a guy like Theo Johnson. I would rather go Mason Taylor. We've already seen the opportunity go his way.
Wentz got hurt his left shoulder. Addison didn't play the first quarter because of a coach's decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, and Wentz went in. Yeah, Wentz went in about two minutes left to go in the half. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
Was the coach decision just him getting hawked by a linebacker last week? Like, come on, man. Okay. Just a few more. Mike Dagoon, Pollard, Kamara, Marks, Rashad, Kamara, and Rashad White.
Yep.
Fields, DFS price. Yeah, I know it's dope, man. It's just going to be super chalky, but for cash, I totally get it.
Yep.
Joseph, Mercado or Carter. We are going with Michael Carter. Again, it's just a situation where I don't think DeMercado's role is going to change all that much. It's not. I think Buffalo last year when James Cook was out was a decent thing, even though Ty Johnson is kind of their number 2. Like we saw Ray Davis actually assume more of the workload. It's tricky. We don't know for sure. Michael Carter was saying in an interview, though, this week that he knows how crazy it was going from practice squad player of the week to now the starter. So I do think Carter's going to lead the way. Is that someone to be super excited about anyway? Probably not. From Greek, Jags defense to start over Baltimore. Yes, dude, Baltimore defense way too banged up. I noticed the Houston Texans offense, but like it's literally just backups. Now we got Cooper Rush at this point, so you can't even feel good about them playing with a lead. Higgins or Slayton non-PPR, T. Higgins.
Yes.
Dustin, pick 2, full PPR. Dobbins, Pittman, Woody, DeMercado, Carter. I would go Woody and Dobbins. You cool with that, Chris?
Yeah, Woody and Dobbins. It's either Woody or Dobbins or Woody and Pittman. But I'll say, Woody and Dobbins.
That would be who it's from. Ertz with Daniels or Kelsey. They're like the same guy at this point.
Yeah. Even Kelsey saw like a drop in targets per route run. His air yard share was also like closer to the line of scrimmage versus downfield with Worthy back. So I'd say either one of those guys, they're pretty much the same person at this point.
I actually have Ertz. Most of the other rankers have Kelsey. Jack's defense, no joke this year. That'd be a tiebreaker for me. Tucker, Hunter, Washington, likely. I think we're team Trey Tucker.
Yes. Yeah. I thought he meant Sean Tucker for a second. I was like, man, Sean Tucker.
Yeah. Kachow, 1 PPR, start 2. Quentin Johnson, JSN, Worthy, or Allen. I got JSN and Worthy. If you want to start QJ, I get it. That is a very good problem to have.
Yeah, it's still JSN and Xavier Worthy. After seeing the lack of restriction for him being used with the shoulder injury, JSN and Xavier Worthy.
Waller. They are right next to each other in the consensus ranks. I do have Darren Waller ahead just for the upside. I know his routes weren't there last week, Chris, but I would lean Waller. How about you?
Yeah, we have to project for a larger role for Waller in this game, but also the fact that he was being used more downfield. I think his average depth of target was 10 plus yards in the second half after Hill went down, which is kind of odd. So not the same Jonnu Smith middle of the field type of stuff we were getting from the Dolphins tight end last year, but still, I would say Waller, especially going against the Carolina defense.
Last one from Ricardo, Keenan Allen and Matthew Golden for Jamar Chase. That's not enough for me. I'm not trading Jamar Chase for that.
It's just, I mean, you guys see the hats behind me. I ain't doing that. We're not doing any of that. Come on, give me something better than that.
All right, I lied. Real last one from Blaze Higgs. I'm guessing you mean Juwan Johnson or Brenton Strange. I would go Juwan as long as he's active there. If you do mean Quentin Johnston, for the love of God, start Quentin Johnston. So with that, guys, we're going to let Chris go get those boots on the ground and Cincy enjoy that game, my brother. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. Again, invite you to go to our MB Fantasy Live Twitter, down or sit tool presented by Xfinity, and go ahead and get anything else you need answered. But appreciate you. Chris and I are back each and every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern to hopefully get those lineups in the right spot. So until next time, guys, for Chris, producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. Take care, everybody.